All right, everyone. We are here at long last. It's been a month. Maybe we've recovered, maybe we haven't. It's Fallen Star Night. It's time to celebrate the final adult novel of Phase 1 of the High Republic. We are very excited. We're emotionally charged. I hope you all are too. We got very little news. We're going to do a lot of book talk right on the other end of this intro. So, Wes, I'm already ready. Time to punch it. Hello, everyone! Welcome to the Living Force, a UT Network podcast all about Star Wars books, all about the books that make us emotional. I'm one of your hosts, Eric Eilerson, and joining me tonight to talk all about Claudia Gray's The Fallen Star is the full crew. First off, we have the Doctor, the Corey, the Helton. Hey, buddy.
Hello. I'm very tired. I've worked, what do we say? Charles,
79 hours.
79 hours.
One less than you're allowed to work. You be thankful.
Be thankful. Show a little gratefulness, Jesus. Yeah, I've worked 79 hours this week, which has been pretty impressive. So apologies if I'm a little tired. My brain is, pretty burnt out, but not for Star Wars. Never.
That's
for
right.
Star Wars.
It's like dessert. There's a different part of your body that stays open for it.
That's right. I can wake up a little for this. I can probably squeeze that piece of cake in there.
Well, you know what? Who's the cake of this podcast? That little sweet surprise that makes everything better. It's Dr. Charles Hankel.
Okay, I will take that. I don't know how much better I can make tonight. I think the Fallen Star kind of speaks for itself, but we'll still talk for a couple hours about it.
We absolutely will, and I always like to speak for myself, unless, of course, I can be spoken for by Wes Jenkins.
Hello, everyone. And I finished the book. Did you ever doubt me?
I don't anymore.
Thank you. I
used to. Yeah.
I really put myself through hell in the 2 days before the roundtables, but I get it done. I wish I would have read it earlier, but here we are.
But here we are. You made it. The folks in the live chat made it. Shout out to our dishes gang. Everyone doing their dishes right now as they watch Living Force. Or if you're listening or watching later and you're doing your dishes, know you have friends. You have people doing the exact same thing. But of course, however you're watching or listening to us, we thank you for tuning in. If you're watching the video, go ahead and make sure you like that video and subscribe on YouTube. And if you're listening to it on your podcast catcher, make sure you're subscribed. And if you haven't rated it yet, go ahead, give us that sweet, sweet 5-star thumbs up, recommend. I don't know, there's way too many programs now, but let people know that you like the show so they can find us. Other people that like us, though, are our wonderful patrons over at utini.com/Patreon or patreon.com/utini. So I want to say thank you to, honestly, a bunch of people this week. It was a great week for our Utini Patreon community. And we thank the constantly in the chat and now on Patreon, our good friend Stephanie Mack joined us, Jacob Sudam joined us, and Brian Dooley became a member of our Jedi High Council, which was huge. We also got a new annual patron, Brandon Medley, who helped us out for our yearly planning. And y'all, because of all of this, we have officially reached our next Patreon goal for our Revenge of the Sith commentary. That's right. We still haven't done the Rogue One commentary, which is coming in the next 2 weeks. We do have to re-record, but we are already to our next goal. And y'all, just taking a moment to say thank you all that this keeps happening. We're continuing to push forward in goals because of this awesome community.
Yeah, we're constantly thinking about new stuff that we can help out shows and stuff. We actually just this week bought some new equipment for some of the video guys over there that are doing the voiceover videos and stuff. So we got some new mics and new stuff like that. That's really cool. We recently just adopted, much to the chagrin of pretty much everybody on the team. We just adopted this huge new software to handle all like the project organization and everything. So that's going to be I think it's really fun, but that's a huge expense that we never would have been able to consider doing if it wasn't for our patrons. And like those things just help us do the thing that we do better, right? So, that's how we, support the show. We all have jobs and stuff in real life, and I somehow Tom Sawyered everybody into helping me out with this thing. And we just
The
keep
fence
painting that
still is
fence.
not painted.
Just keep
It is not
painting that fence. That's right. So
Yeah.
thanks a lot, guys, for sure.
Yeah. We hope you enjoy all the content that's coming your way this year. We've already had a bunch of meetings recently about the content offerings for 2022, including some events we'll be talking about later on this year, and it is all thanks to you. Thank you so much. And speaking of this team, we wanted to give a little announcement that we are actually in need of another video editor. So our team at Utini is looking for talented folks that have a little bit of experience editing video. We are looking to turn some of our existing content into shorter form content. You may have seen our bounty hunts. We are kind of clipping those out and using those as a bit of an experiment. We think people have been enjoying that. So if you're interested in joining us here, a team of passionate Star Wars fans, and if you want to volunteer to contribute to our mission here at Utini, shoot a brief note to Corey@utini.com. That is Corey, Corey, at Utini, YOUTINI.com, and see if you can join us in making some great stuff this year. And of course, last thing we want to say, speaking of that email address, that email is actually always open for a bunch of reasons. People email Corey and the site for a lot of things. But this past week, we actually, as a staff, got a little emotional on a couple days because we've received some really lovely emails from the community, and we just wanted to take a moment on air to say thank you to all the folks that have emailed us about your stories about why you love Utini or why you use the site or how your year has been helped by being a part of this community. We do share them around the team, and honestly, life's been a bit hectic for some of us on the team lately, and those messages literally get us through the day sometimes and remind us why we're having these meetings, why we're creating all this fun content. And it was really special this week, right, guys? I mean, it felt like there was a deluge of just positive thoughts from our community.
Yeah. Yeah, we had 3 really big messages this week from email, like that were just. It's always really a big honor when somebody really takes the time to write a very heartfelt message to us, right? Because we do go through these phases where we're like, oh, we're not doing enough, or we're not trying hard enough, or whatever, which is kind of crazy with the amount of content that we do put out and stuff. But I don't know, there's just. We started this thing in the first place because none of us really had Star Wars friends growing up, and here we are, and now we're all super close, and I feel like when you listen to a podcast, sometimes you don't see the people, or maybe you never know what they look like if you don't look at video content or something like that. But you do feel like you have a relationship with them, and that's what it feels like with the viewers and the listeners. Is like we're all just kind of friends, and we've had multiple people in the last couple weeks tell us we're the Star Wars friends they never had, and that hits me so friggin' hard because I feel that, man. That is why we do this in the first place, and to feel that other people are able to get that by participating in this community is seriously incredible.
Yeah. That's really strong and brave of those that come with their personal stories that would never probably wouldn't tell to somebody, in the normal day of life. So it means a lot to us because we can relate. We can definitely relate to those stories because we pretty much are those people. So thank you again for those heartfelt messages.
Yeah. And it goes to show that this show has not only given us, Star Wars friends or friends through Star Wars, but all those people that are sharing that stuff with us, like you said, Wes, that stuff you share with your friends. Maybe we haven't met, maybe we've only talked over email, maybe you've only commented on YouTube videos, but we read those, we try to respond to those as much as we can, and we actually are your friends through Star Wars now. So we're really glad every last one of y'all are here.
Yeah, sure. Thank you all so much. And keep them coming. They make our days. But what makes our weeks is not only emails from you, but official announcement from Star Wars. Wes, Star Wars Weekly Roundup. 2 pieces of news.
It's the Star Wars Weekly Roundup.
All right, 2 things about Star Wars this week you gotta know about the books. Number 1, last week we talked about all the books coming out in 2022, except we didn't, because there was one book that we did not talk about specifically because we didn't have a lot of details yet. But literally the next day or the day after on This Week in Star Wars, we received a cover reveal for Star Wars Hunter's Battle for the Arena, which is a middle grade novel from Mark Oshiro based on the upcoming Arena Fighter game. The title text says, on Vespara, newcomer Reeve, a Force-sensitive orphan from Corellia, is finding her footing as a hunter in the arena, but it's not long before her past comes back to haunt her. And this was revealed on StarWars.com with a full article and interview with Mark Oshiro. So, like, how fun that there's yet another Star Wars book, and this looks absolutely nuts, and it's based on a mobile game. Like, why not, right?
Yeah. Yo, man, dude, this chick looks so badass.
She looks awesome.
Yeah.
And you look at that. Look
Seriously.
at that weapon that the Wookiee's wielding back there. That thing can crush a couple skulls. And then there's I didn't even notice the Jawa with the gun. Come on now.
Are they stacked? Are the Jawas stacked?
The
Looks like
characters
they
you
are.
can play as in the game is a Jawa standing on top of another Jawa. That is
Wow.
one character. It's like two kids in a trench coat getting
Oh,
into
that's
a movie.
great.
I know. One day you're sneaking into an R-rated movie, and next day you're kicking ass in an arena. All right.
I almost
Circle of
said
life.
like this is like if they made a novel or something based on Galaxy of Heroes, and then I realized that's just Star Wars.
Oh, yeah. That's true.
Yeah, they've done that.
That's true.
It's like when are we gonna get that Darth Vader movie? It's like anyway. Although speaking
point.
of Darth Vader, one of his good old time friends is getting another media project. Charles, would you like to do the honors to tell us the second piece of news we got?
Yeah, so the second piece of news this week was for a character who may be a little busy later on this year, because there's a new Obi-Wan series coming from Marvel, written by Christopher Cantwell, art by Ario Anindito, and basically it's going to perfectly accompany the show. It's going to perfectly accompany a lot of the books that are coming out later this year that we talked about. And Eric, I think you have kind of the details on it, right?
I do. We know that this series will find the titular bearded hero in the final days of his time on Tatooine, chronicling early adventures in his own journals, which if you've read the Marvel Star Wars series, you know we had a couple from the journals of Obi-Wan back in the day, so this is all about that. The tales span Obi-Wan's entire life as guardian of peace and justice, including his days as a Jedi initiate, Padawan missions, experiencing the Clone Wars as a Jedi Knight, and facing new threats as a Jedi Master. So even though we're getting a new book about Brotherhood, which is about Clone Wars, we're getting Padawan, which is all about his Padawan time. This series does seem like it's going all the way from pre-Phantom Menace Obi-Wan all the way through Sir Alec Guinness Obi-Wan. So this should be a really fun, even a visual treat too. Ario Anindito, the artist from the High Republic, does great stuff. So it'll be cool to see all these versions of Obi-Wan.
Yeah, super excited for this. There's some comics that like you see them coming out and you're just like, man, I can't wait for that. And this is definitely one of them.
Yeah.
And not like Anakin / Darth Vader wasn't already a huge part of Obi-Wan's story, but I do feel like it's telling that he also makes the cover that was shared.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely. I mean, obviously with Obi-Wan, the series coming at some point this year. My money is on May the 4th, but we don't know yet. It's going to be a great year for Obi-Wan content. So the comics coming out. Get those pre-orders into your local comic shop. Of course, StarWars.com has all the additional details. And if you want to buy some additional books and help support Utini, head over to our new release schedule. You can pre-order the High Republic Adventures Volume 2 coming out on the 22nd of this month. And next month brings us the High Republic Mission to Disaster on March 3rd and the script book of High Republic The Tempest Runner on March 15th. All right, we're going to take the world's quickest break. That is actually the same length as it is every week. But then we're going to come back and dive into our full spoiler-filled discussion of Claudia Gray's The Fallen Star. You don't want to miss it. See you in a minute. It's what Jimmy McGinty says Shane Falco needs.
Is absolutely
Charles is calling! Put him on! Put him on! Wait, is this a first-time caller?
Hello, you are live on The Living Force.
Hey, long-time listener.
Yes, what's your question?
My question is for Wes. Why does he think that he can do my job?
Corey put me up to it.
Oh my god.
Corey made you do it? That's your answer?
Oh, man, this was
I'm enjoying the show. I won't interrupt anymore. Have fun.
How canon is Darth Bane? Obviously, he is samurai body voiced by Mark Hamill since season 6 of the Clone Wars, and they reference Bane's order and all that. You created the ruler too. But he was the worst Yoda I've ever done. I'm getting tired. It's been a long week.
Is that what that was?
I didn't
I
even.
thought you were having a voice moment.
Yeah.
I didn't
the
even get the
coughing
word
fit.
structure right.
Oh man.
Edit that in post, Rick. How can
You put this image of in my head of Piet just whipping out an Uno reverse card and slapping it down.
Bam!
Take that.
Yeah, I don't. That Vader does not play Uno though, so I don't think that would be a wise long-term
No,
discussion.
He doesn't have the patience for it. He just force chokes everybody.
Exactly.
Okay, everyone, from the New York Best Times. Nope, dang it. I had the entire break to prep that. I messed it up. For the New York,
New
Best
York
Times
Best
list
Times.
sellers of every book. Great, Claudia. Let's take that back. From the New York Times bestseller list to the UTD podcast, it is time to talk about The Fallen Star. This is your last warning. This will be a full spoiler discussion, and for this book especially, I urge you to really read the book and make sure that you enjoy the entire thing fully. Don't let us ruin this book for you. Charles, it's about that time. Let's dive into yet another UTD Roundtable.
Yeah, to be clear, we always encourage you to read the book, but let's
But then for
go
real.
ahead and do this. Let's go ahead and do this plot synopsis. Guys, strap in. This is another one of the long ones, but here we go. Despite the atrocities of the Republic Fair, the galaxy is still in need, and the Jedi must persevere. After a cyclone decimates the planet Irum's water supply, Starlight Beacon arrives to assist. Markian Ro, fixated by his plight against the Jedi, orders coordinated attacks on key planets around the galaxy. Meanwhile, his assistant, Thea Fair, slowly transfers all other living beings off of Ro's flagship, the Gaze Electric. Elsewhere, Elzar Mann, under the tutelage of Orla Jareni, finishes a meditative retreat on the planet Lidelau, having become more centered but guarded in his use of the Force. The two were picked up by the crew of the vessel just as reports of Nihil attacks come rolling in. Jedi Regil Call escorts two newly captured prisoners aboard Starlight Beacon, none other than Chancey Yarrow and Nan. They're to be questioned despite their insistence that they are no longer with the Nihil. Bel Zettifar, Buryaga, and their masters also return to Starlight after their most recent mission. As news of the Nihil attacks spread, the Jedi focused their efforts on providing a safe haven for victims. Civilians flocked to Starlight looking for safety. Amongst their numbers are Afi Hollow, Leox Jossi, Geode, Joss and Pika Adrian, and a small crew of Nihil disguised as maintenance workers sent by Markian Ro. These saboteurs quickly get to work disrupting key systems aboard the station. Amongst this chaos, something else has gone awry. More and more Jedi aboard Starlight can feel that something about their connection to the Force is off. An inexplicable sense of dread has taken its place. Stellan Gios struggles as the interim marshal of Starlight Beacon. The responsibilities weigh heavily on his shoulders, especially after the events of the Republic Fair. But none weigh so heavily as his falling out with one of his closest childhood friends, Avar Kriss, over her pursuit of Lorna D, the supposed Eye of the Nile. His life is made more difficult by his exceedingly annoying new personal assistant, a droid named JJ5145, who was a gift from Elzar Mann. Things worsen further when Stellan is haunted by a horrible nightmare, or perhaps a premonition, of great suffering and death. Tensions among the civilians aboard Starlight are high, but grow only higher when the crew of the vessel realize their arch nemesis, Coley Lynn, is also aboard. Yet they also find new friends in the form of the Adrians. Orla Jareni wanders the station, searching for the source of the disturbance in the Force. She stumbles upon Regil Call doing the same, though their joint search yields nothing out of the ordinary. Stellan calls a meeting with Elzar and Orla. He shares his dark dream with them, and through their combined efforts, they're able to identify that the disturbances are strongest near the cargo bay. They move to investigate.
The Nihil saboteurs discover that Chancey Yarrow and Nan are aboard and decide to add to the mayhem by setting them free. Together, they all head for their main target, the reactor core of Starlight Beacon. Markian Ro and Thea Fair, now the last living beings aboard the Gaze Electric, receive their first shipment of new crew members, Enforcer droids. Senator Girastaros arrives shortly after, shockingly working alongside Ro as a Republic informant, amongst other things. Avar Kriss returns aboard her ship, the Ataraxia, but is quickly informed by Stellan that she is no longer Marshal of the Starlight Beacon. Though the two are at odds, there are bigger problems at hand. Orla Jarini, Indira Stokes, and Reginald Call go to investigate the cargo hold. Before long, Reginald is attacked and transformed into a lifeless husk, just like Loden Greatstorm. Indira Stokes is also attacked and badly injured, but somehow survives. Indira is transported to the medical bay, and Bel Zettifar is faced with yet another of his masters falling. The Nihil detonate an explosive in the main reactor core, utterly destabilizing Starlight. Chansey and Nan are horrified to learn that the Nihil have no plans for escape. It was a suicide mission from the start. The fallout from the explosion is devastating. Panic takes hold among Starlight's inhabitants, communication systems are down, and lethal levels of radiation completely isolate sections of the station from each other. What's worse, the launch bay doors have sealed, trapping everyone aboard. With the help of JJ5145 and an array of astromechs, Stellan and Elzar set up a secondary command station in the Quartermaster's office and discover that the top and bottom halves of Starlight have essentially been cut off from each other. Worse still, they quickly find the beacon is caught in Irem's gravitational pull, and unless something changes, they will crash within hours. Though the Jedi debate whether or not to tell the trapped civilians that Starlight is falling, Leox Gysi figures it's out for himself. That secret doesn't last long, as Coley Lynn overhears Affy telling Pika and begins spreading the word, whipping the other civilians aboard the station into a frenzy. Bel and Buryaga are able to hotwire a droid in the medical tower to send a short-range signal to a nearby Irem medical freighter to request assistance. Driven mad by what's going on aboard the station, Orla decides to go looking for whatever is hunting the Jedi. Unfortunately, she finds the answer, and she too is husked by a mysterious creature. Her final moments are marked by agony, confusion, and an inexplicable void where the Force used to be. Leox finds a way to send long-range signals from the vessel, even though Starlight can't do it itself. Stellan alerts the Jedi Council, who plan to send aid, but even the closest ships may not make it in time. I think it was like 3 hours. Stellan realizes that Nihil attacks were strategically placed multiple hyperspace jumps from the beacon so that it could be entirely on its own.
Bel and Buryaga find a maintenance shaft that allows them to reach Elzar Mann in the Quartermaster's office. Elzar informs them of Jedi disappearances, and the two decide to start a search. Suddenly, the infrastructure of Starlight Beacon reaches its breaking point, and the entire station rips in two. Both equally doomed halves plummet towards Irem, sorry. I listened to the audiobook. I know all the names. It just
You got this.
Take me a second. All right, so the beacon reaches breaking point, and the entire station rips in two. Both equally doomed halves plummet towards Irem's surface. Queen Thenteka informs Stellan that an analyst on Irem believed the top half of Starlight, housing Avar, Estala Maru, and others, will burn up in the atmosphere, and that the bottom half, carrying Stellan, Elzar, and the medical tower, will strike one of the biggest cities on the coast. She must consider shooting down and destroying the station to save her own people. On their search, Bel and Buryaga stumble upon the remains of Orla Jarini, and shortly thereafter, those of Nib Asik, Buryaga's master. Stellan is then personally confronted by one of the disturbances in the Force. He narrowly escapes by deploying an airlock to separate himself from it. Using the new command station, the Jedi are able to get Starlight's positional thrusters online again. But unless they can physically get to the controls deep in the irradiated base of the station, it's still not enough. Without warning, the top half of Starlight Beacon catches fire in Irem's atmosphere and explodes, killing all on board. Coley Lynn wastes no time using this fact to try and convince other civilians that the Jedi can't protect them. He tries to rally forces to fire their ship's weapons at the launch bay doors to create their own escape route. Stellan limps back to Elzar, a shadow of his usual self after his confrontation with the disturbance. With everything they know and love crumbling around them, the two have their first honest conversation in years, not as Jedi, but as friends. Elzar, fully aware of his potentially unhealthy connection to Avar, tries to communicate with her through the Force. They make brief contact, both experiencing the Force how the other typically does. Elzar hears a melody, and Avar hears the sea, and they realize each other is still alive. Though it's not much, it's enough for now. Elzar plans to use the retrofitting subsystem of Starlight, a program that allows walls to collapse and rebuild, to alter the interior of the station to allow ships to fly from the launch bay to the cargo bay. There, the cargo bay may be depressurized to provide an escape route. He also hopes it will allow him passage to the base of the station to operate the positional thrusters. However, Bell and Buryaga have to clear the way first, a feat made exponentially more difficult when they accidentally release a remorse of Rathdars in the cargo bay. They are forced to retreat. Bell hurries back to the medical tower upon formulating a new plan to get the Irem medical frigate docked with the station so that the sickest patients, including Indira Stokes, can be moved. He builds and detonates a bomb that separates the medical tower from the rest of Starlight, leaving it floating in free space, but allowing the medical frigate to dock. Elzar and Buryaga return to the cargo bay together to fight off the Rathdars, but Buryaga is swarmed and carried away.
Coley Lynn, finally out of patience, initiates his plan to blow open the launch bay doors, but when things don't go according to plan, he takes a small child hostage. Geode comes to the rescue and saves the child. As revenge, Lynn tries to shoot and kill Geode, but the blaster bolt ricochets back and kills Lynn instantly. Chansey and Nan search Lynn's ship and find radiation suits that he had stolen from the station. Chansey plans to use them to reach the positional thrusters since it seems their only hope of survival. Ships from around the Republic amass at Irem in an attempt to help, but matters are already beyond saving. All they can do is witness the horror. The Gaze Electric also arrives, and Rose smugly watches his plan come to fruition. Spurred on by sheer desperation, Elzar once again fully opens himself to the Force and manages to open the cargo bay doors, allowing some civilians to escape. In the process, Buryaga is very likely pulled out into the vacuum of space and killed. Athi and Leox realize they can take the power cores from the ships left behind in the launch bay to power escape pods. They quickly set to work. After transferring the sick and injured to the medical frigate, Bell flies a shuttle back to Starlight to search for Buryaga. Instead, he is tasked with helping clear the path for the escape pods prior to their launch. Elzar flies a maintenance pod to the base of the station. Along the way, he is attacked by one of the disturbances, but just manages to escape. As Chansey and Nan near their positional thrusters, they are attacked by the Nihil saboteurs who are intent on the total destruction of Starlight. The Nihil are defeated, and Chansey sets to work. On Irem, Queens Dima and Thandeka are urged by their defense minister to shoot Starlight down, but they refuse. They instead order a mass evacuation from Baraza. Leox, realizing they are running out of time, produces a thermal detonator from the vessel and thinks it may be able to crack open the launch bay doors. Clinging to the side of the station, he detonates the explosive and opens the doors, allowing ships, including the vessel, to escape. However, in the process, the wind rips him from the station and he presumably falls to his death. Elzar arrives at the base of the station and finds Chansey and Nan working on the thrusters. Thinking they are further sabotaging Starlight, he immediately attacks them and cuts Chansey in half mere moments before she brings the systems back online. Warnings blare over the intercoms that the station has fallen below the altitude at which the positional thrusters can be effective, and Elzar is left to reconcile with the fact that he has murdered someone in cold blood, and in doing so, has sealed the fate of those left on board. Stellan and JJ5145 then arrive, having followed in another maintenance pod. Stellan urges Elzar to leave immediately. He obliges, thinking his friend will be right behind him. Stellan takes the controls and fires the positional thrusters to full power. Though he can't stop the station from crashing, he can keep it from landing directly on the city of Baraza. He knows that if he tries to escape, the station won't move far enough. He accepts his death in exchange for the survival of others. What's left of Starlight Beacon crashes into the ocean just outside of Baraza, killing all who were left on board. Survivors gather across the coastline, witnessing the chilling aftermath of something truly unthinkable. Afi and Geode mourn Leox until he surprisingly reappears, revealing he was wearing a parachute that allowed him to survive. Elzar and Avar are also reunited and eagerly await the arrival of Stellan, who they presume used one of the last escape pods. Instead, JJ5145 arrives, carrying news of Stellan's sacrifice, as well as a final gift for Elzar, his lightsaber. In the wake of tragedy, the people of Baraza and the survivors of Starlight Beacon work together to search for normalcy. A citywide effort is amassed to mitigate the damage. The remaining Jedi use their reforged connection to the Force to realign the desalination plant, thus sparing the entire planet of Irem from water deprivation and yet more lives lost. Thus, some good is found amongst immeasurable devastation. Despite the assumption that the Wookiee died, Bell vows to find Buryaga. He refuses to leave another Jedi behind when there's any chance they survived. He declares this in remembrance of his former master, Loden Greatstorm. Markion Rose sent a broadcast to the rest of the galaxy on the former frequency of Starlight Beacon. He identifies himself as the Eye of the Nile and not only lays claim to the galaxy, but promises there is much more death and destruction to come.
And everyone lived happily ever after. And
what?
Charles, you have outdone yourself on
First of
writing
all,
that,
Charles,
by the way. Charles
well
wrote all
done.
that by himself.
Well done. Like
Very
10
good,
minutes
very
before the
good.
show. It
Like,
was crazy.
No, so there you have it. In case you're here and you didn't read the book, you got just the important bits and hopefully some of the emotional weight behind it. Now, guys, let's go around one at a time. Let's do what we always do. Let's rate the book 1 to 10. You can give any initial thoughts you have, but save anything too big for later in the roundtable. So first, Wes, you just finished this book. You read it in a couple of days.
Mhm.
What do you rate it?
Okay, so I started this book with at our Asheville meetup. I started on the audiobook, and then I didn't read it for a week, so I forgot everything. So I started over. So I started last Friday and I finished last night. But I thought the beginning and some parts in the middle it was a little slower than I had liked. But the writing of the Jedi and the struggle everybody went through, and just like the existential crisis that some of them had come to terms with was amazing. Such good writing that Claudia Gray she's obviously one of my best Star Wars writers, if not one of my favorite writers that I've ever read. So having said that, I'm going to give this book a 9.0.
Very solid. Very
Okay.
solid.
That is a solid score out of the gate. Corey, what'd you think?
Yeah, I was a little later to this book. You, Charles, and Eric, you guys both finished this really, really fast. Eric, you had to finish it really, really fast because we had a very fast turnaround on the review copy from the publisher, which made it a little challenging. Not gonna lie, but we did get a review out. And your reaction was very visceral. I can't wait to hear you talk about it. I finished it, I think about 2 weeks ago. I'm pretty sure I finished it about 2 weeks ago, and I also very much enjoyed this book. I thought, like you said, Wes, I thought there was some slow build-up, and maybe the build-up felt a little slow because you kind of know what's going to happen, right? Like, it's on the dang cover, right? You know, the falling star, you know it's going to happen, so you're kind of like, it's like watching the Titanic. You're like, all right, where's that damn iceberg? You know what I'm saying? Like,
That's a good analogy.
Yeah. Like, you know you know what's going to happen, right? You know what's going to happen. So, like, there's a lot of build up, and that took a little while to get into, but I mean, I don't know how they could have just opened with that either. So that's a whole other conversation. Overall, once the book like really picked up and bad shit starts happening, I mean, this book could really have been called like, you know, Star Wars, the Book of Bad Things. Like, seriously, something bad happens like every single chapter. It seems like I had trouble putting it down. I really did. Like, I mean, I was listening to it. Like, I set my phone in the shower, so when I get home from work, I listen to it in the shower, and then I actually bought a Bluetooth speaker so I could continue listening to it in the shower, because of this book. Yeah, so like I could. I really
Caitlin's like, why are you so pruny? Oh, I've been in the shower for 45 minutes.
I really had trouble putting it down. It's like, Wes and I have talked about, we kind of share this, like you listen to it in the car on the ride home, and then like you sit in the driveway for 10 minutes. I was doing that a lot with this book. And I very much enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good experience. I thought it had a couple of plot things I'm happy to talk about that I think maybe detracted a little bit from the story. But overall, I very, very much enjoyed this book, and I will give it an 8.8.
Very solid.
Okay. 9.0 and 8.8. Eric, what about you?
So as Corey said, I got this book, and we had about 48 hours of a turnaround time before I needed to start writing the review. And I had not read a book that fast in a while. And I was a little worried that, like, you know, having that kind of pressure sometimes detracts from a reading experience. You know, you can get more worried about the date and the time than the book. But that timetable weirdly allowed me to give into the stress of the book that the characters were feeling. It all takes place in a very finite period of time. It's not it's not months, it's not weeks. It is all within basically this moment of Starlight Beacon falling as the whole book. And as as I wrote in my review, have never had such a visceral reaction to a book. I despite my love of books, I've never had like the open, like, oh my God, I sobbed because of this book. I cried like audibly, and like all these things I've heard people do, and I just like, oh, maybe that's just not me. Maybe I can feel that level of emotion, but I will never actually like have vocal tears about a book until The Fallen Star. By the end of it, I was very, very inconsolable as a person. And also the fact of reading it for the review early and not having anyone to share that with was a special kind of isolation, which I also think really worked into the emotional reality of the book. All that to say, I was not a fan of Into the Dark as much as Claudia Gray's previous work. I doubted a little bit how much I would like her doing this book. And I immediately got slapped in the face by Claudia Gray's talent and said, remember who I am, you dumb little boy. And I happily give this book a 9.8. I put it all the way out there. I have not stopped thinking about this book. I know Midnight Horizon is still a month away from us, but these two books back to back, I think, are the strongest, easily adult to YA combo of the High Republic so far. And the way this book ends just hit me in a way no other book in any medium ever has before, and I can't wait to talk about it more. 9.8, happily.
Dang, man.
Wow.
I'm excited to boost my score then, because I know what's going to happen after this conversation.
I took a moment with this book to go back and listen to what I rated The Rising Storm, because I knew how I viewed those two books in particular, just in terms of my experience and this and that. And I decided to give this book a 9.0 as well. So Wes and I are the same. I think this book is
pretty typical on this scoring, actually.
Yeah,
Wes is super high.
is.
I kind of lowball it. You guys are kind of in the middle.
Eric loves it.
We're acting in character.
Yeah. This book for me, it's pretty incredible to think that it's 400 pages, and it's telling the story of really a matter of hours. And I think it did really hold up in terms of the momentum, because every chapter, just things went from bad to worse, to worse, to worse, to worse, until the very end. I felt like all of that, all the weight of that was behind those final, really deeply emotional moments. I think they delivered, despite the fact that, like you said, Corey, we knew what was going to happen. This was the Titanic. It was doomed from the get-go. And keep in mind, we've been talking about Starlight Beacon being doomed literally from when it was introduced as a concept. Right?
Yeah. What is this giant thing? What is this brilliant thing that's literally never seen in any other Star Wars? Oh yeah, I'm sure it's just got forgotten about. Yeah, it's a geonosis.
You got put in storage.
Right. Right. And so you would think that
storage light beacon. Am I right?
So
Rick. Could have kept that in. Could have kept that in.
I don't even understand it, but I'm moving past it. And all that said, the book really had a lot of reasons why maybe it shouldn't have delivered in those final moments. And I still think that it did. And I think that's probably a testament to Claudia Gray. I think she has hit another home run with this book. And R.I.P. Stellan. That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, dude. Obi-Wan of the High Republic, man.
Yeah. So
we'll get there. We'll get there.
We'll get there. So let's go ahead and jump into the character section. I don't know if maybe we should just start this off with a moment of silence. I think maybe that's probably appropriate, but we'll skip that just in the interest of time. We're going to do what we've done with most of our recent structures for the character section. I'm going to read y'all some quotes, ask you one big prompt, and then take that wherever you want till we move to the next character.
Great.
And I actually don't want to start with who you might expect. I want to start with Bel Zettifar, who played a really big role. At least he was developed a lot as a character in this book, even though his name didn't pop up a whole bunch in that plot synopsis. And the first quote comes from very early on page 6. It says, "Finally, action, a chance to move on the Nile. Bel had wanted this, needed it, ever since the loss of his former master, Loden Greatstorm. Not for vengeance. Greatstorm would never have wanted that. For the knowledge that Bel had done something, anything, to counteract the evil that had robbed his master of his life. The Nile were already beaten, it seemed, but neither Bel nor the rest of the galaxy would be at peace until the threat had been laid to rest. Once everyone else regained their confidence and security, maybe Bell would too. Yeah, I actually just got some goosebumps. Page 38. Yeah. What's up?
I was gonna say that quote is so, because it's so early, right? It's so definitive on Bell. Though Bell, I think, is one of those characters that is we've all loved so much. He's won so many brackets of favorite characters because he is burdened with so much legacy from the tragedies he has already gone through. But he has risen and risen and risen and risen, and in a way that we haven't really seen weirdly in any other Jedi previously in Star Wars. And I think that someone who has gone through so much hardship and had issues and had doubts and had moments of I'm not strong enough, I don't know what I can do. Watching Bell as this strong young man still choose light despite everything telling him that dark would be easier and dark has won. I think he is legit one of the most inspiring characters in all of Star Wars. And the fact that Claudia Gray starts this on page 6 is like, no, Bell is still that dude. He is the fire, he is the light, and he is going to keep going. And it shows throughout the whole book.
I mean, just call him the Rocky Balboa of the High Republic. Why don't you?
Yes! Rocky Balboa. That was better. That was better.
Just like in the very beginning, too, you can tell that he kind of gives in. It sounds like he's giving in to fear, or he's giving in. He's like he can feel the rage building up of all the things that have happened over the past months. But then he realizes that is not the right way, and he keeps showing that throughout page 6, the very beginning. And there's so many instances that happen throughout the book, and he has to keep fighting off all the dark side, or has to keep fighting off not trying to succumb to fear. So he is, like you said, Eric, without a doubt, like the essence of what a Jedi really is.
Yeah.
All right, you hooligans. Let me read the rest of these quotes, then you can say whatever you want. I swear.
Excellent.
I'm gonna be quiet.
Call me hooligan.
Page 38. Acceptance was strength. It was not being able to carry the weight of what had been and what had not through all the many days, months, years, and decades to follow. Bell would bear this burden as long as he cherished the memory of Loden Greatstorm. That meant he would bear it always. On page 340, getting close to the end of the book, we all assumed that Master Loden was lost when really he was being held captive by the Nile. If I'd kept the faith, if I'd insisted on looking for him, we'd have spared him a great deal of suffering, and we'd probably have saved his life. So I'm not giving up on anyone else like that ever again. That starts with Buryaga. And then on page 273, this one might make me misty.
I'm so glad you did this one.
Stellan held up one hand in farewell, wondering whether he would ever see Bel-Zettifar again. At least in this moment, he'd been granted a glimpse of the great Jedi Knight Bel would become. So, my question for you about Bel is, how has Bel's incredibly difficult journey up to this point in the High Republic shaped his approach to tragedy in this novel? What ways have you seen him grow the most?
Oh man, I will say that Claudia Gray is absolutely brilliant at writing tragedy, and like these really heavy emotional moments that are in this book are like every character has a couple of them. It seems like all the major characters has a couple of these really deep soul searching moments, and Claudia Gray is absolutely genius at writing them. And like I felt those moments, and like I got misty eyed a couple times. I didn't openly sob, but I did get misty eyed a couple times during this book. And Bel dealing with Loden has been one of my favorites, like heart-wrenching aspects about the entire High Republic initiative. And like it was such a beautiful way to shape his characters, and it happened very early. Like, you know, when they killed off Loden, like I didn't think anybody was safe at that point, and like that was such a good move for his character development to allow the listener or the reader to like be along with Stellan here, right? Like I felt like I was also able to catch those glimpses of what a great Jedi he's going to be, right? Of a Jedi Knight he's going to be. Like the icing on the cake at the very end, and also kind of when I knew Stellan was, you know, kind of screwed, was when you had this final line of farewell to Bel. Like that was such a beautiful, powerful moment, because I feel like Bel's there. He's at the trials already. Maybe this is the trials, right? So
Yeah. I love that in this book you could tell this is the woman who wrote Master and Apprentice, because she so understands the intimacy of that relationship, honestly, between Master and Apprentice, and also just like Jedi Master and Jedi Knight, or Jedi Padawan of any kind. Because, Charles, what I loved about that quote you read on 273, directly preceding it, Stellan has a thought where he says, he's not asking permission. He's not second-guessing himself. The doubt that had gripped Bell since Loden's initial disappearance has gone, and good riddance. You've done well, Stellan said. Indira will be proud of you when she wakes, and Loden Greatstorm would have been proud too. And I think that is what I have learned about Bell, because I feel like, Corey, you're saying, like, I feel like we're Stellan. And we are Indira, and we are watching Bell, and we're just so damn proud of him, because we've watched him grow and watched him be like, God, man, if I was you, kid, I could not get back up, and you are ready to, you are going to go build a bomb to save your master. You are doing this. And I'm just like, the way Claudia Gray writes that level of almost parental pride in Bell from the rest of the Jedi. I mean, Stellan is right the highest, but all of them I feel like feel this way towards Bell Zettifar, and I think that is more than anything, more than even Bell's journey, has been everyone's journey around him, is them waking up in this book being like, oh my God, Bell Zettifar is going to be the best of us, isn't he? And you just had that moment of clarity, and that's what this book really meant.
Yeah, and how hard is it, do you think, of him having to get a new master like right after Loden died? Like, you think, just accepting that he has to listen or be mentored by somebody else. I mean, it's almost like when your dog dies.
Too, like, remember, right? Like, they wanted him to knight him, but he wouldn't let them knight him, right? Like,
not till Loden was there to watch.
Yeah. Oof. So yeah, I mean, that's rough. That's psychological, like, turmoil that he's probably go through his entire life. I don't see him getting over all of this. I wouldn't say like maybe eventually, like I'd say ever.
Well, and I think that's the cool thing about him too, is that when Charles Soule made the decision that Bell Zettifar danced with fire in Light of the Jedi, right? That's how he described him. Fire is by nature volatile, right? It can't really be controlled. It can just be like, you can kind of move it to the direction you want, and you have to use it for the right reasons, or else it will destroy everything. And I feel like Bell, with that much tragedy and that much pain, could easily just burn up. He got it for himself. He could explode elsewhere. He could be an Anakin, but he channels his fire, and he doesn't make it rage, but he lets it burn and simmer to give him the power, but he never lets it quite explode off of him, which I think makes him unlike any other Jedi we've seen.
Yeah, there's something really intriguing.
And Ray joined us. For our audio listeners, Ray has now joined the chat. Hi, baby
my
girl.
dog insisted on jumping in my lap. And
hi, sweetie.
And leave here in a second, but hello, Ray.
So I think there's something really intriguing about, in a book and in a overall story that is as full of tragedy as the High Republic has been, to look at it through the eyes of someone young, right? Because Bell Zettifar is very early on in his Jedi training, early on in his life. He's, I kind of do equate him to a young Obi-Wan from like the Phantom Menace. He's like around that stage. And we see him go through some of the hardest things that Jedi have to experience in their entire life. And he undergoes them in a matter of, 3 books that we've read, a short time period in universe as well. And not only seeing him have to deal with that tragedy, but to have to grow up probably faster than he wanted to, and to have to learn these coping mechanisms without anyone to teach them because his masters are gone. It's just, it's an extra layer of heartbreak, and to see him have to just grow up so fast it makes him really endearing. It's a terrible thing to make you endearing, but really it is to lose that sort of innocence. It just pulls at the heartstrings.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All the love to Bell. Blind Face in the chat says something I think we'd all love. I want to see old Ben Bell, gray beard, all wizened old Bell, because oh my God, he's so wise now. Just imagine being able to be trained by old Master Zettifar. I hope we get there. I hope we do.
He'd have all the experiences that you would need to learn from. So
yeah.
If they kill Bell, I will never come back to this podcast.
Well, Charles, it would take a while. There would be Kill Bell Volume 1. There'd be Kill Bell Volume 2.
Oh, my word.
Get out of here.
Clip it.
We need like whatever levity we can find in this episode. We just gotta throw out because it's all sadness.
We got to take it. Well, one last moment of levity while we're talking about Bell. Obligatory shout out to Ember. I love you, Ember. And there's a moment in this book where she's excited to see Bell, and she's like wagging her tail and jumps up in his arms, and I think she's described as wriggling, and that just made me so happy.
I know. That's
good girl.
So the next few characters are inevitably intertwined. There's going to be some bleeding into each other here, and that's fine. We'll just take the conversation as it comes. That's because these next characters are a constellation, and the first star in that constellation I want to talk about is Stellan Geos. So you guys know where this is going.
Oh my God.
The first quote I have for you is from page 239, and it's Stellan commenting on the destruction of Starlight. The quote goes, "It was a failure so complete, so appalling that Stellan could scarcely comprehend it. The symbol of the Jedi, their pride and joy. Under my watch, Starlight was destroyed." Elzar cocked his head. "Stellan, can you hear me?" Of course Stellan could, but he couldn't react to it. Couldn't act at all. Whatever evil lurked aboard the station had stolen more than the Force. It had stolen his pride, his will, his tongue. If only it could steal his pain. Just a few pages later, on 244, Stellan says, "Greatness can mean a lot of different things. I've always believed it meant duty, honor, selflessness. But how can you be selfless if you've never defined yourself? Because I never have, Elzar. I've lived as a Jedi exemplar, poured myself into a mold shaped by others. But take away my ability to use the Force, and I find myself left as a man I hardly know." From the same exact page, this was a killer page, Claudia, thank you. Stellan shook his head and at last met Elzar's eyes. The openness Elzar saw there, the vulnerability, was something the two of them had not shared since they were Padawans. Stellan had shielded himself so slowly, so gradually, that Elzar hadn't even noticed it. My friend has returned to me, Elzar thought, the one I didn't even realize was gone. And then the final quote I have for you from 330, JJ5145 to Stellan. "But you must evacuate or you will die." "I know what I'm doing, 45, Stellan said. He felt stronger than he had in days, maybe stronger than he ever had in his life. He imagined Elzar Mann's face, then Avar's, then Orla Jareni's, and he smiled. "I know who I am." So, yeah, I know.
Out of here, man. Holy crap. Like, seriously.
I mean, Claudia went off in this book, man.
Listen, droids set up the best deaths in Star Wars, in my opinion.
Yeah, they are an alley-oop of emotion.
They are an alley-oop of emotion because like they don't feel things, right? So they just set up the absolute best deaths. When K2
and they only recognize logic.
Yes, when K2 dies in Rogue One and he says his farewell to the other characters, you're like, nobody's safe. Nobody's safe. Like, and it was such a beautiful touch to do the droid farewell at the very, very end.
Yeah.
To state the obvious, right? Yeah. Like for the reader, it was very,
if
very
you
cool.
don't leave, you will die. Yeah.
Yes.
And what made that even worse. So if the audiobook for our audiobook listeners, JJ5145 is Andy Dick. That's who it sounds like, 100%. If you know who Andy Dick is. So it's very quirky. Everything he says, whether he's being serious or whether he's trying to be funny, he has a very weird and quirky voice. But this particular segment, when he said, "But you must evacuate, or you will die," like he was like heartfelt about it, and completely changed his tone. And you like as you listened to it, or you were just like, "Oh my God, this is it." Like he's gonna sacrifice himself.
Yeah.
That's
very good.
There were some moments. So I read the book mostly physically, and we did get an audio review copy as well, which I went back to occasionally depending on my time. And this was a scene, Stellan's sacrifice, where I read it and then I immediately put on the headphones and I listened to it again because I thought Mark Thompson did such great work in this book. I wanted to hear him do the scene. And then the other scene where I did that was the one, Charles, that you just pulled like 3 quotes from
244 when he talks with Elzar. Yeah,
I think this scene hit me. It's one of my scenes of the year already. Obviously, I know we're early, but as far as Utinis, we have moments of the year, we have things like that. This is already a front runner for me. I think this scene is so important for male friendships because as far as like we've talked about this amongst ourselves. I think a lot of men are getting better about this nowadays, but seeing 2 men at the height of their power, at the height of their strength, come together and just be so vulnerable and open with each other about the Jedi, about their identity, about tragedy, about loss, and about the love they have for each other. And they're like, man, I got you. What do you need me for? It's like the Rising Storm had this a bit when Elzar was afraid of his power. This scene was longer. I thought it was more intense like that. And I was like, my God, what a gift. I hope there are a lot of young men that read this and get this and understand that you can be this for your friends. And obviously, it doesn't matter what gender you are to have these type of conversations. But for the stereotypes of hypermasculinity and things that you don't have these conversations, seeing these 2 Master Jedi talk to themselves about this was so wonderful. And like they said in the chat, now knowing the end of the book, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so glad Elzar got to have this talk with Stellan because he didn't get that at the end of this book.
Yeah.
And to counter this, I don't know who I am. I'm fearful. I don't know who I am as a Jedi. With his literal last words of "I know who I am," he gets that moment. And no one else sees it but the droid. Like you said, Corey, it's only the droids.
Yeah.
No one else gets to see that Stellan has that moment of revelation. But it doesn't matter because he knows he gets it, and he is finally fulfilled in saving Elzar and Avar, the 2 thoughts he has. And it is such a beautiful, what is that? Almost 100-page little sequence right there. That I think does more for Stellan as a character than some characters get across 12 books.
Yeah. Well, so can we try to answer the question that I think was kind of raised by Orla Jareni initially, but that Stellan really adopted, and that was his identity, right? His identity was constantly questioned through this book. It was, who is Stellan without the Jedi Order? And in his last moments, he says that phrase that's so important for his character progression. I know who I am. So Stellan found that answer. I'm curious as to what y'all think that answer is. Who is Stellan Gios without the Jedi Order?
So this is, I did give this book a much lower score than everybody else. So like, I feel like I have to at least talk about some of those reasons a little bit. And Stellan's character development a little bit in this book is one of my, I would call it a small criticism, I think, because I didn't really feel his character development super strong in this book, right? Of like I felt like it was supposed to have been very profound, and I felt it very powerful, but like I don't feel like we got a different Stellan in this book than we've already had. You know what I mean? Like we've already sort of gotten this exploration of, self-righteousness and all this kind of stuff throughout the story that it didn't really feel like as huge of a question of who is he? I have no idea, Charles, answer your question. Who is he without the Jedi? Dude, I don't know. Like, he seems exactly the same as he always has been. So I'm interested to hear what your answer is with this. Yeah. Like, who is he?
Can I piggyback on that?
Yeah.
And then I want to hear what everyone else has to say. I think that might be the point. And to be entirely honest with you, that didn't occur to me until you just kind of said what you said. But
like maybe the fact that he doesn't know who he is, like that's the point.
No. I think the point is that he is the person who puts his neck out for his friends, not because the order tells him it's the right thing to do, but because that's who he
does
is.
it anyway.
It's like Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan's not. He doesn't have to pretend to be the best Jedi because he is the best Jedi, right?
Yeah,
is that what you're
I'm
saying?
biased, but I'm biased.
You said it, so yeah. I mean, I'm gonna just defer to the chat. My words, literally word for word, was I was gonna say. Alexander just said, "Stellan without the Order is a friend," and Stephanie says, "and a brother." And I think you nailed it there, Charles. To me, this book showed that Stellan always thought he was doing things only because the Order said, and maybe those aligned. But in that
Yeah, that's a good
moment,
point.
yeah, there's no glory to be received. There's no one ordering him to do anything. He is making that sacrifice because he thinks about Elzar. He thinks about Eivor. He doesn't think about the Jedi. He doesn't think about the Force. He thinks about the people he is saving and his friends that he loves. And I think that he's having that moment of realization, which I think the Jedi should ultimately be. And we don't see as much in the prequels, obviously, when the dogma gets a little more intense. The perfect Jedi is the person that is doing things for the right reasons, but those right reasons are because you also love people.
Yeah,
like friends. So
Yeah.
I love that.
And
I'm gonna steal that from all y'all.
Yeah, that's a good point, and I do see that that's maybe kind of what they were trying to portray a little bit with the, he's just a really great friend, and I don't really feel like we saw that exploration very much. Like, I feel like that's a key part of Elzar Mann's character is he has got all this background with Avar, all this background with Stellan, but that feels like Elzar's character development, right? It doesn't feel like Stellan's character development. So, I think I missed a little bit of that, weight that his death was supposed to have in the end, which is probably why it didn't hit me as hard. As terrible as it is, I wish it would have been Man. If the goal
Elzar has friends, and then he has nighttime friends, which is the fun thing about Elzar. He's like, is that your friend? It's like, yeah, it's my roommate, honey. Yeah, it's my friend. It's like.
Yeah,
we'll get to that.
Exactly. Which we'll talk about Elzar. But
speaking of Stellan, he says that he is questioning about who he is without the Jedi Order. I mean, who knows who they are without the Jedi Order? If you're a Jedi, because you've been a Jedi your entire life. So how do you know?
Baby. That's why
how do you know who you are? So I mean, that's. And as he's seeing,
take away the suit. What's left?
As he's seeing as seeing Starlight completely crumble before his eyes, and then he is the marshal. He's the one that oversees this. He's like, maybe he saw the end coming, and so he was seeing his death in his own eyes as he was still alive. So
yeah, I mean, he's seeing himself that he's in those end moments is the thought of. Am I a failure? Did I try to build these things and they didn't work? Am I a bad marshal? Am I a bad Jedi? Because he's seeing this evidence, but I think then it's getting that reinforcement of, no, maybe what I was supposed to be was the best I could was the best that I could try with Elzar. And I do agree. I think that a lot of this is being read in, but I think that I think that
I'm sorry. There's a
you shouldn't be laughing at any point of this roundtable.
At
any point,
there's a scene in Futurama. It's super random. It takes 2 seconds where there's this pirate and he attacks the main ship or whatever, and then they blow him up. And right before this all happens in the span of 8 seconds. Right before he blows up, he zooms in on a window and you can see him as the ship is about to blow up behind him. It's catching on fire and shit. And he goes, "I've realized that the true treasure in life is my children," and then he dies. And it's
that's basically it.
That's what happened.
God.
He's the only thing that matters is friendship. Then everything blows up and dies in destruction. So that's what we were supposed to get.
That was it.
Missed that until just now.
So the only time, and it was only one time, I got misty-eyed in this, and that was the Armageddon moment. The Armageddon moment when Elzar sees JJ5145 and he says, he wanted me to give you something, and he hands over the lightsaber, and I was like, holy crap, dude. That's the time when he handed over Harry's patch to his daughter. No, to the mission control guy. He was like, he did, huh?
Yeah.
That's Armageddon, damn it. That movie gets me every time. I've seen it 30 times. 40 times. I'm just like, God dang.
I haven't seen Armageddon in a decade. I want to watch that again.
Anyways, that's what got me.
So I think that another interesting angle to look at this from is, I don't know if y'all noticed this because it was something more subtle. Jedi in this book were not only disconnected from the Force, but through that they also had their own most toxic maybe personality traits become more prominent.
Yeah,
we saw Orla Jareni be more quick to anger, and the reason I bring it up is because with Stellan, to me it seemed to be pride, right? He put a lot of stock in being the Marshal of Starlight Beacon, being right about Avar Chris's chase to catch Lorna D when they thought she was the Eye of the Nile. And when things came down to it, he really flipped that on his head, right? He really put self-pride to the side, and he said, I am who I am because of the people around me, because of these friendships I've cultivated since I was a Padawan. And he paid that back maybe in the best way that he could have. And I think that just speaks so much to his character. So I know I was invested in him because he's High Republic Obi-Wan, but I personally, this really did hit me a lot. And even though I'm terribly sad to see him go, I am hoping that we see the weight of his death carry forward in a similar manner to how Loden Greatstorm still permeates every book, that we read in the High Republic.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep. It's an amazing sacrifice.
So on that note, I have one last quote I want to leave you with before we move on to the next character. And it's from page 342. Oh. Avar murmured, Stellan always saw the Force as the firmament, as brilliant and expansive as all the stars in the galaxy. He told me that he saw the three of us as a constellation. Elzar's vision blurred with tears. He fiercely blinked away. An incomplete one now. No, he's still with us, as surely as the Force is with us. Stellan has become one with the Force, after all. Avar leaned her head against Elzar's shoulder, and when we think of him, we can always find him, as long as we look to the sky. Elzar held her close. Our pole star still shines. So that's how we will leave Stellan. Our pole star still shines. Damn it.
Damn it. This is right.
All right. Yep. Let's go to the next one.
All right.
Just move it on. Just go on. Get on with it.
So Elzar Man is who we're going to talk about next. First quote for you is from page 25. But the truth within him demanded to be known. At night, when he looked up at Lidalau's 3 broad shining moons, he imagined them as pinpoints in Avar Kriss's sky. On page 247, and then he heard it, just for a moment, just a brief sense of melody, but still, it was the song of the Force as Avar Kriss heard it, and for this instant, she had gifted it to him. The shock and delight of it broke his concentration. Elzar was back in the present, as far away from Avar Kriss as ever. Yet he was stronger for that moment of communion. On 325, seconds before, Elzar Man had been a Jedi, a hero, a man on a mission to save lives. Now he stood there a murderer. He looked down at the bisected corpse lying near his feet and thought he might be sick. All the work he'd done with Orla Jareni on Lidalau, all his good intentions, all the progress he'd arrogantly believed he'd made, every bit of it had vanished in one spark of rage. That was all it had taken to tear down Elzar Man. And then 339, Elzar thinks this to himself. My actions deprived the galaxy of one of its greatest Jedi. For the rest of my life, I will be trying to create some small fraction of the goodness he still had to give.
Dude, man. These quotes you pick from this, Charles. Jesus, man.
I mean,
quote of the year is going to be a racket this year, y'all, the UTDs. Like, my God, it's February.
It's tough. I mean, seriously, Claudia Gray did not pull punches. And when you take these, because you can't read, not every sentence back to back can be as incredible as these quotes that we've pulled, but when you read them back to back, it really is like you have no time to come up for air.
There's a lot of good one-liners for sure.
Yeah. So my question about Elzar is this: having just rebounded from giving in to the dark side in the Rising Storm, did Elzar Man fail in this novel? Like, is he right back in that dark place that he was before this novel? And if not, why not? What's changed?
That's a good question. I think the Jedi of this era, this is interesting that this is a really good thought. I think that just came to me. Like, the Jedi in this era have like way more insight to their own feelings with the light and the dark side than any other Jedi we've ever seen. You know what I mean by that? Like,
yep.
Like they just understand like how, like, most Jedi they only understand when they cross a line, right? I feel like Mace Windu, like when he had the Emperor, he was like, I'm gonna kill him, I'm gonna do it. Like, he knew it was gonna be crossing the line. The the High Republic Jedi, they know when they're like approaching the line. They can see it off in the distance, right? Like, and
good point.
It's just they have so much insight about that, and it's crazy, right? So when Elzar is asking this question, like have I crossed the line? It's like he's asking it really, really early. You know what I mean? Like he's asking it way before he's even approached the line, right? But that makes him an interesting character because he has this. He's almost letting it consume him of like being afraid to give in to the dark side. Like, but we all know that he's like nowhere near becoming the dark side. You know what I mean? Like,
right?
Like he's so far, but. I mean, but then he goes and does stupid shit like just kill this lady in cold blood, which is like when that happened. I remember I was driving on the road. I'm driving on the road, and he kills her. I'm like, I literally go, what?
Like Darth Vader. What?
Yes. What? Yeah, like driving down the road, just like it totally took me off guard because it happens really fast. It happens really fast in that scene of like he just rushes in and kills her, and then Nan is standing there and she's like, "What the hell, bro?
You're trying to save your skins."
Well, it just seemed like such a severe reaction. Like, is that what Elzar does when someone is about to make a mistake? Like someone's about to open the gate and the dog's going to get out of the yard, and his response is just slice him in half. Like, what? Just say stop first.
Like,
I
Excuse
know
me?
they didn't have weapons or anything.
Yeah.
It's just it was almost like a stupid reaction, not like a oh my god, I'm gonna turn the dark side and kill these people. You know what I mean?
Pissed.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I think that's the thing. Like this moment for Elzar is filled with so many great moments. I will say my I guess my hot take on this pod. I think Elzar Mann is a top 5 Star Wars character after this book, after this initiative.
Really?
Top 5, because I think these books he rises. He's also shown up in a comic recently, which is pretty great. If anyone is reading the Charles Soule Star Wars comics, he's a little cheeky about putting his own stuff in there. But I think for 2 moments, one, that moment is incredible as far as narrative structure goes. I think Elzar showing the panic of this whole place has been destroying with alarms going off, people dying for hours and hours. And you see someone at the reactor core who you know is a Nihil, and you know the Nihil have set bombs off and they're going to kill millions of people. You're like, I can end it. Bam, I got to be done. And then the regret, the way she writes regret in that moment of Elzar realizing what he's done. And then in the future of storytelling, now having him to reckon with the fact that he's basically killed his friend Stellan while finding his love Avar is such a beautiful, disgusting, like kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Like this dichotomy of feelings, right? Its contradiction of ultimate joy and ultimate sorrow is going to be amazing. But also that scene where that you talked about with him and Stellan earlier, him and Avar connecting through the Force is easily what I'm putting in as my Utini moment of the year for right now, my nomination. Because there's a point in there, I was looking at my actual notes, I had all caps lock at this point, but he pulled the quote, Avar, be with me in this moment, like Rey, right, Skywalker, right, pulling the Jedi in. And that moment of Claudia Gray realizing their love and their connection is so strong that they are not only going to find each other in the Force, Elzar is going to reinterpret the entire nature of the Force through Avar's eyes, is a moment of like, that's where, to answer your larger question, Charles, now, I don't think he has gone to the dark side. I don't think he has tapped into it. He has given into anger. Absolutely. Did he fail in that moment with Chansey? Yes. I think undeniably, if there was a success and failure in that moment, it is a failure of giving into hatred. Totally. But he has absolutely changed, I think, even from the beginning of this novel, because I think he is catching up to people like Bell, to people like Stellan, to the wisdom of his age now. I think he has gone through the power, he's gone through the passion of loving his friend, of loving Avar, of making these choices. And I think now we get to see him go towards wisdom, go towards that honoring the memory of Stellan by living as he would. And how lucky to be able to have a friend like Stellan to learn from for the last 20-something years to now take on that legacy. And I think it's going to make him a truly incredible Jedi. Hopefully when we get back to him in phase 3, I'm guessing. But in this book, I think he was kind of a little bit of a playboy power guy in Rising Storm, right? We saw him hanging out at the fair, having a good time. He was doing his own stuff, and I think in this one he still had a little bit of those urges, but by the end, I think he realizes he and Ava are kind of ascending, and time to grow up, time to lead.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really get over the fact that, he's got this thing with like the most babe of all Jedi of all time, right? I mean, like he's got that going for him. So, the way he describes Avar it awakens something to me. Let me tell you,
it's lovely, man. I'm like, yo,
it's like I've never really like looked at books or Star Wars characters and been like, I wish there was a spicy version of this. But man, let me tell you,
Elzar, man, and the kids say our boy
Avar,
is
man.
Yeah, our boy is
I would read the
down
crap out of
bad.
that spicy novel.
Elzar with Fabio hair on the cover. Yeah.
All right. Dude, yeah, but yeah.
So Eric, I'm going to flip your explanation you had about Elzar upside down.
Do it, man. Hit me.
Okay.
WWE.
And I'm working off of odds here from all the characters we've seen of Jedi
Never
that
tell
have
me those,
turned to
Wes.
the dark side, right? So we have Dooku that has turned to the dark side. We have Anakin that has turned to the dark side. We have quite a few. There's got to be one in the High Republic, and the one that would turn is going to be Elzar. And now he's not going to turn because of the things that have happened to him in the past. They may poke him and prod him a little bit to make him think that way, but he's going to turn when Avar dies.
Oh my god!
Solid prediction.
You're also right. Very right.
Listen,
all the greatest tragedies in Star Wars are because of an imperfect love affair.
Absolutely.
Love.
He is mirroring Anakin and Padme right now.
No,
not totally, but it's a very similar. So that's my hot take.
He's too open about.
Really
how much
is.
He wants it. He is. He's
I know.
way too open about it. He's like, oh, I was thinking about it. I shouldn't have been doing that. Like,
do we think out of
Or is it
curiosity?
going to be Avar? Yeah.
Well, does Avar, are they on the same page? Because like here's what I'm saying. Like they're mourning their friend's death. They're holding hands, staring up at the stars. She puts his head on his shoulder. All things that could be friendly, comforting gestures. But I do feel like Elzar in the back of his mind is like,
Charles.
This might happen.
This is kind of nice.
Charles.
I'm serious.
Gentlemen in Saudi Arabia hold hands all the
Here's
time.
the thing.
It's not a, it's a thing.
I do believe
is Avar on the same page as Elzar?
I do believe it is. She is, because I do believe it is in this book or another book. They are mentioned to have memories of basically when they fooled around as Padawans. Like is canonical. That happened.
There's an interesting
said on the Living Force.
Yes. There's an interesting quote.
Thrown out at second. They only routed
Put that
first.
on a t-shirt. Want that on a t-shirt. We fooled around as Padawans. Let's put that
Yeah. I would say I think they are, and I agree with in the chat right now with Blind Fates, Alexander. The comics story currently in the High Republic comic for Avar, you get a lot of her story in there. I think we're seeing a lot more of her potential turn as well, and a bit of her passions in there. For those of y'all that if you're watching or listening, you haven't been reading Kevin Scott's High Republic comics, highly recommend her and Keith Trennis. Again, Master Trennis is mentioned as someone that left and Dooku Jedi lost, so we'll see if that happens. I do think it is possible that 1, 2, 5 of these people might turn to the dark side at some point.
All of them.
But
dude, they all become Sith.
What if Elzar and Avar turn into like a super sexy dark
goth
side
couple?
A super sexy goth couple.
Yeah.
I didn't know I wanted that until just now, but I
be on board
absolutely
with
want that.
Do we want to officially now transition to the
Oh my
sexy
god, they'd
goth
sell
with
so
the
much
white
merch.
snitch?
They'd sell so much
With
merch.
that said, let's talk about Avar Chris.
Okay.
If we do this together.
She was a boy.
Okay, spicy book.
She
It's
was
not
a
gonna
girl.
happen. Let's just get that out of here.
I was crying. I'm sweating. Everything.
All right, on page
face is kinda hot.
74.
Okay.
Page 74. Reason told her that she had every chance of apprehending the eye in the immediate future. Beyond that, however, the Force told her that it would happen. Every note in its great song was leading to this chorus, one Avar could imagine she knew by heart. Then, for no reason she could easily name, she found herself wishing that Elzar Mann stood beside her. Some of these quotes might answer the exact question I just posed. Anyways, page 245, Stellan to Elzar. You've always known I was wary of the intimacy between you and Avar. This was the last topic Elzar had dreamed would come up, and very nearly the last he wanted to mention at the moment. You thought it was because I obeyed the rules, but that wasn't the whole truth. Really, I was jealous that the two of you had a connection I didn't share. Stellan cocked his head, studying Elzar as though they hadn't seen each other in a long time. A constellation of 3 stars, but 2 were much closer together. And then page 247.
If you know what I mean.
This is...
Yep.
Page 247. This is the flip side of the quote that we read for Elzar. Both far away and very near, Avar levitated with her arms outstretched, calling upon the song of the Force to sustain them all and give them strength as every Jedi in or near the Starlight Beacon fought to save the station and all those aboard. Every individual was a note in the greatest, most meaningful chord she had ever known. Between those notes lay another sound, so subtle she barely recognized it. The sound of the waves, the roaring of the sea. Okay, so all of that said, the first question I actually have for you is, there is some chatter online. There is at least an opinion out there that has garnered some support that Avar was quote unquote sidelined in this novel. I want to hear y'all's thoughts on that. Is that an accurate statement about her character?
Yeah.
If so, why? And if not, why?
Okay. So I do have, we actually had this really big discussion on our own team about like some of these kind of topics as well. And like, I think I might be a little bit in the camp of too much major stuff is happening in too many different mediums right now. I might be a little bit in that camp. Like, I absolutely am a big fan of like really cool stuff happening in books and young adult books and in comics and that sort of thing. But I feel like there needs to be a little bit more crossover like between the different mediums, because like it's pretty undeniable that not everybody reads all the different stuff, right? Like we try to read all this stuff, but even we have trouble keeping up with it. We run a Star Wars podcast, right? So I would love to see, I'm not saying that like the comics can't have a big thing or the book can't have a big thing, but I would like to see a little bit more like crossover where like it kind of fills you in as you're reading the book, like kind of some of the stuff that happened in the comics, just a little bit more. It doesn't have to be obvious, just a little bit more. And I feel like this is sort of the repercussion of the creators making the choice to make all the different mediums very important. I feel like this is sort of the negative side of that, right, is like when you put Avar's major story in a comic, it kind of makes it seem like she was left out. She wasn't, right? She had a comic, right? But it seems like she was left out to the casual reader, because there was a huge portion of Twitter that was pretty angry about that for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So,
and I think that's an interesting point, because for this book, was she in it a lot less? Totally. I think there was a clear setup of like Light of the Jedi, Avar, Rising Storm, Elzar, Fallen Star, Stellan. Like that seemed to be the I guess how they ordered out the constellation, if you will. But it's also interesting for the comic because, if you look like the first issue of the High Republic comic where Avar's story is being told went back, I think, to 5 printings, so sold over 200,000 copies. So it's like, so I do want to just like, obviously the book selling numbers are much harder to find, but I do wonder if actually in the country have more people read the High Republic comic than have read these books, which would be interesting. And I think that, like you said, Corey, that is just the trade-off that we get. I think that
like Jacob just mentioned in the chat, I actually meant to bring this up. As he says, I will say, if you read only adult novels, the Dringir are almost never mentioned. It's wild that big of a part of the story is also absent. Yes, true. Yes, that is probably the most legitimate criticism of the point I'm trying to make. Is the Dringir had a whole book to set them up, and then they're gone, and that's it. There's no more Dringir, right? So,
and it's that balance of like,
they're frozen, like, Corey. Did you not pay attention?
I know that
they're
now
frozen.
because I read the comics, but
and I think that's the hard part about, it's the Marvel question, right? It's how at this point, if you haven't seen every Marvel movie or watched all the Disney Plus shows and you just pick one, at some point you're gonna miss out on something. So what's the one thing you can at least get through the story without with still understanding? And I think the
There's
Avar
some kind of magic. Yeah, there's got to be some kind of magic like equation for that, right? Like
there's whiteboards all over the place.
I know it's hard. It's really hard to do from the creative standpoint. Like there are like instances I think which we can all agree on that are just like kind of goofy. Like the fact that they put Palpatine's like call to the galaxy in a Fortnite game.
Yeah,
right?
that's
so if you don't play Fortnite, you miss that detail, right? That's like the most extreme version of that. We can all agree on that, right? So there's got to be some medium of that, even if maybe like the first couple chapters or something were to maybe catch up some of that stuff, right? And
but I think to that I agree with the story is like if you want like recap chapters or something, I think that's more helpful. And also I think that people like honestly like us and in the media are trying to be better about that to help people catch up on things. But for this sideline question specifically, Charles, I think that some people were bringing it up purely as like a sexist point to say like why is Avar sidelined? And I'm like the main comic of Star Wars right now is the High Republic. And the two leads are Keith Trennis, a black woman, and Avar Kriss, a white woman. Like
that is objectively
that's
a bad
not part of it.
I disagree with that.
And who's to say? Who's to say if they added her into the book that that would have taken away from character development of everybody? Because it would have been.
I think she's used well.
Just less, So, and I mean, we have 2 more phases, right? She could be prominent in a lot more. I mean, and you're going to have to remove people too. So now some people be mad that maybe Elzar may be not be front and center. But I mean, so many people died in this one. I mean, there's enough characters to go around.
Listen, I will say. I did feel like it felt a little out of place that we kept mentioning that Avar is in that ship right out that window, there.
At
She's right there. I see the ship, but we never got a scene from her perspective, a single time.
That's fair. I would have liked that.
That was a little weird to me, right? Like it would have been better if it was like nobody knew where the ship was, or like it disappeared or something like that. But like the ship was right there, and like they kept talking about it. And like, did Avar help people get off the top of the ship? Like, why did we? Maybe they're gonna tell the story again. Maybe we're gonna see the top of the ship. Maybe that's gonna be its own story. The top of the Fallen Star.
It is in the comics.
Okay.
It is in the comics. Sorry for those people that are caught up on the comics. Once phase 1 is done, the High Republic comic does take place on this. Last week's issue that came out, the other half of this is happening in that medium. That is okay, we can say that it's not a spoiler as of right now because the issue is out.
Enough.
Well, there you go. Because Avar is such a popular character, they're trying to get people to purchase the comics, get into a different medium.
Well, I mean, I can
spend more money.
That's also a point to in favor of Corey's point, though. If you're not reading all these things. No, but I'm saying if you're not reading all these things, if you're not reading the comics, you're not reading the YA, etc. Like there are chunks of the story that you don't get.
It does feel like they're missing. As you're
really
actively reading, it feels like there are some gaps in the story, and like they're intentional gaps. They designed it that way, but like, it's a design choice that I think a lot of people are having trouble with.
Yeah,
like I think
it's unique to this. Like we don't see that in other parts of Star Wars because this is the first time they've tried something like this.
Yes, right. And I think that is a valid criticism, and maybe the creators, or not even the creators really, whoever helped design the project, like maybe overestimated how much crossover there was between like people that read books and comics and that sort of thing, right?
Possibly.
Like, to be clear, go read the comics, right?
They're really good.
I want to read the comics, but I mean, you can't really argue with the fact that comics are harder to like follow regularly and get them every single week, and the digital thing is challenging, right? So, I will agree. I agree with the criticism a little bit to answer the original question of like, was Avar sidelined? I don't like that language. I don't think she was sidelined, but her story did feel noticeably absent. I will say that.
Yeah, not a malicious intent, because Claudia Gray got some like. People were kind of real jerks online, like to that point towards Claudia Gray. Like you didn't like this character.
Get out with that.
Get out with that. But I do agree if you want like, and as someone who, as a reviewer, had read all the comics, that's why probably honestly like my score is significantly higher at certain points because like that hit me like a dump truck because I had all that in.
Yeah.
Which is why like if you watch episode 9 and you've watched the first 8. etc. It's an interesting
No,
thing to see
that
how
actually-
Phase
that
2 will
actually
handle
brings
that.
up. I was gonna say that actually brings up a really great point because Phase 2, we're going back in time, right?
We're starting all over. There's a new comic. There's new books. You can
Theoretically,
just jump
yeah,
right
we get
on.
a whole clean slate. So like you can forget about not feeling like you're caught up and everything. And I will say for Phase 2,
Can't forget about Dre. That's it.
That's true. What? Get the hell out!
I'm sorry.
I will say, I like after this experience with Phase 1 of the High Republic, I'm definitely going to be way more like conscious about trying to keep up with everything as it's coming out with the second phase, because I do a little bit have that sense of I'm too far behind to catch up. You know what I mean? Like people will get to that point. Like you're even in a lecture in class or something, and like they get to a point and you're like, I have no idea what the hell is happening. And then 10 minutes later, you're like, I might as well leave class today. Like this is a waste of time.
Every day.
That's why new number 1, I think, is solid.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Anyway.
All right. Well, let's. I think you guys pretty much answered all the questions about Elzar and Avar. We have one last character I want to talk about here, Markian Ro. How do we not talk about him? Right. So I've got a few quotes for you. I'll ask you the prompt here from page 146.
Speaking of spicy.
Yeah. We could have detonated the kind of device that would have destroyed Starlight instantly. Smuggling it on board would have been more difficult, but with our intel, not impossible. Yet that would have defeated the purpose. The entire galaxy must see this. They must watch it happen. They must know the true power of the Nile. On page 287, personally witnessing Starlight's demise from the Irem system itself was a privilege that belonged to him and him alone. Page 338. Only one gathering would ever be grander, the one Markian Ro intended to hold as soon as the Jedi had been crushed forever. He smiled to himself beneath his mask, secure in the knowledge he wouldn't have to wait very long. And page 344. These are a couple of clips from his kind of final address to the galaxy.
His Fortnite speech.
His Fortnite speech, yes. By now,
So glad I brought that up.
Palpatine has returned in Fortnite. So, page 344. By now, most understand that the Nile are responsible. Until this hour, however, very few have understood who was responsible for the Nile. In other words, it's high time I introduce myself. I am Markian Ro. I am the eye of the storm. I am the eye of the Nile. Much was made of the idea that Starlight Beacon was a symbol of hope, he continued. But there is no hope in this part of the galaxy. There is only despair. There is only the Nile. It was the Nile who created the great hyperspace disaster, and we can do so again. It was the Nile who attacked the Republic fair at Valo and left your high and mighty chancellor bleeding at our feet. And today, it is the Nile who have burned Starlight from the sky. The Republic can't protect you. The Jedi can't protect you. We have proved they can't even protect themselves. We go where we want. We strike where we want. Our will is the only authority in this part of the galaxy and the only one there ever will be. I do not wish to rule the galaxy. If I did, you would be under my boot even now. But I will take what I wish when I wish, and no one will stand in my way. Republic, Jedi, or anyone else. This galaxy is mine.
What a flex. What a flex.
Damn, Markian. You didn't have to do us like that, man.
Well, speaking of characters who have sex.
Yeah, okay, he bones. Markian Ro bones. It's canon. It happened.
There was,
like,
listen, of all the sex scenes I was
steamy.
expecting getting, it was not with Markian Ro, let me tell you. You think he keeps his mask on? All right, let's move on.
I wonder.
Think he lets her wear the mask?
No, he doesn't, Wes. He absolutely does not.
There weren't sex scenes. It was just implied that it happened.
Was it good for you, Senator? Like
there was some aftermath, if you will, that was relatively graphic for a Star Wars novel.
Yeah, there was.
And I feel like it was just, this is a total aside. This has nothing to do with my question for him, but I feel like it was reactionary. Do you guys think that actually the Project Luminous authors are sitting at a table and they're like, oh no, this guy's hot as shit? Like, no, I think there was like a weird Markian Ro thirst that came out of like the first book, and then they just were like, yep, we're going
There's
for it.
literally a variant cover that came out this week for the Eye of the Storm, and people were losing their minds because he was so veiny in his arms.
Oh
like,
my God.
Here's the thing. Did they make him very attractive? And yes, they did. Sure. However, I do think that this is maybe a little nudge to the hotness, but also, I mean, the fact that sexuality is actually very, like, on a literary front, I think sexuality is very.
They always do it.
Yeah, but it's also it's a lot more talked about in the High Republic. I think, like, what do I always say? Writers are a product of the times in which they live. Like, writing and literature and movies and books they're more sexual nowadays. Like, we are very much open about it. And I think that having Markion be, like, sexual but also very dismissive tells us a lot about him. We learn about that dude. Yeah. But also, from that last quote you said, Charles, to get back on that for just a second, I think that moment is so epic because, number one, he has been in perfect hiding while they think Lorne is the Eye for a while. And for the history of the Nile is they hide. They've been hiding now. They've been regrouping. They're safe. He could have just kept on going and nothing is bad. However, he was so prideful, so cocky, and honestly so victorious at that moment that he's like, nah. I'm going to own this. You can come after me. I do not care. I will kill every single one of you. Here's my address. Come on over. Like, it was such a
Don't
great
at me, bro.
Literally, dude.
Yeah,
to end this book, which is like we thought we would end on a great moment of unity, and we saved the city together. You know, we know the sacrifice. Elzar and Avar are together, and it's quiet. And then it's like, no, guess what? I'm gonna kill you even harder. Your friend's dead? Cool. Your whole family's gonna die. My name's Markion Rowe. Bring it. Bye. And he hangs up. Like,
yeah.
What? And like Blind Faith says, they're gonna feel like absolute idiots because they've thought this entire time that Lorna was the Eye, and they didn't even figure out she wasn't. He just straight up told them. Like, he owned that moment.
Like, going back to your question, I think he's going to leave the Nihil and he's going to kind of go off on his own.
Well, I didn't even pose it. I didn't even pose it yet, Wes.
Shit,
sorry. So hold on. You read it in the.
I read it, yeah.
In the document. So
Don't read the notes.
Let me pose the question and then please continue with that thought.
I will.
So that is the question. Essentially, is Markion Rowe, when we met him, he was the leader of the Nile. That's who he was. But slowly through the course of these books, he almost seems to be removing himself from the Nile, right? He got rid of all of the crew on the Gaze Electric and replaced them. And we'll talk about that next week. He seems to really speak about the Nile as a concept with this element of disdain, really. So it really seems that he's removing himself and putting himself front and center as Markion Rowe. Yes, he says, I'm the Eye of the Nile, I'm the Eye of the Storm, but Markion Rowe first and foremost. So do we think that he is going to remove himself from the Nile completely to achieve his goal of destroying the Jedi? So please, Wes.
Yes. Next question. So I think now. So he has the storm. He has his Tempest. He has all of these followers that are going to be used to create chaos. They're basically going to be the independent party between the Democrats and the Republicans. They're going to go in there and they're going to start chaos. But he has these. It's almost like these security droids that he has are superior to the Nihil or the Tempest runners that he has as employees to those people. So and it feels like he's building up like an army just for him. That's going to be on the, because why would he remove everybody from the Gaze Electric and just only have this one subordinate that she absolutely does everything that he asks her to do without flinching? Like Geode.
It's like renting out a Vegas nightclub for a Super Bowl party and you invite nobody. It's like, it's just me, but it's a huge club and there's lights everywhere. You got bottle service and you're like, nope.
I only need to have fun with me.
Yeah, it is.
Make sure you leave the remote control.
And a senator.
Yeah, I think that's a great, because I've been back and forth on this, and Wes, that description may have swayed me, honestly, because I think that in his mind, whatever he controls will be the Nihil of the time, like the real Nihil or the people he runs, whatever that may be. Whether it's pure foot soldiers that he just lobs at enemies, whether it's all droids and he just walks in the middle of the chaos. I think this has shown that he single-handedly came up with this plan by himself. He destroyed a beacon by himself. He got the levelers by himself. Like, none of the other Nihil really have been on his plan from the beginning, and he has succeeded so far. So he's like, why in the world would I put all these people on payroll when I can literally just win all the time? All right, great. I have you, and this is gonna sound crude, but I think it's true. It's like I have you for my books, I have you for sex, I have you for fighting, and then I move on. Like, he's basically got everything he needs. So why in the world would he try to like make everyone feel valued as part of the storm? Like, no.
Like, how strategic was it to get like the three the three people that had planted the bomb, get their families away from them? To get to
so
try to sway the
fanatical.
Like, that's incredible. That's pretty sick. You know, that's a pretty sick guy.
Oh, he's sick, man. He's pretty sick. I will agree.
It does seem a little bit like he is slipping into chaos, though. I will say, like, it definitely.
Oh yeah, literal madness. Yeah,
he definitely.
Remember the
has
ghost of his father talking to him, and
right.
I mean,
like,
for
he's
sure.
definitely got that super villain. I'm accomplishing my goals, and the closer I get to my goal, the more into madness I slip. Like that.
Without
that is
question.
a trope that is occurring.
Sounds like
here.
Corey running Utini.
That is correct. That is correct. Yeah.
Yes.
All right, y'all. Well, we've been here a long time tonight. Thank you for your patience. Thank you to everyone who hung out in the chat this long. But Eric, get us on out of here.
All right, folks. Part 1 down. Part 2 next week. Same time, same place. Already cannot wait for all these questions. But my friends, that'll do it for this week's episode of The Living Force. If you support us on Patreon, thank you so much. We are literally meeting after this episode to figure out our Rogue One time. We're going to get that out to you real quick, and then Revenge of the Sith is after that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And again, a reminder, a special note, we are in need of another video editor, so if you want to volunteer and help us out here at Utini, shoot a brief note and a little resume over to Corey at utini.com. If you got some experience with that, we'd love to make some content with you. It sounds great. A special thank you goes out to OK Endar, Jeremy Kazina, JG Karst, Earl Q, Patrick Ortiz, Carl Sander, and our new Jedi High Council member, Brian Dooley, for their amazing support. And of course, our Jedi High Council, and Matt Billington, you can be a Jedi, Tyler Latour, Elizabeth Cloutier, Jason Mitchell, Freddie C., and Sally and Chris Eilerson on our Alliance High Command. You can find us on Twitter. I'm at Eric Eilerson. Corey is at Doc Star Wars MD. Charles is at C. Henkel. Wes is at Boss West. The show is at Living Force Pod. A special thank you to Matt Davenport, our amazing editor, Ryan, our graphic designer extraordinaire, and Wes, our producer and community manager. Thank you to Corey, Charles, and Wes for podcasting with me tonight. Thanks to all of you for tuning in. And as always, we know who we are.